Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar about the Company Director Capability Funds for individuals and organisations. My name is Adelaide Reef. I'm the Manager of Leadership Development Programs here at Creative Australia. I'll soon be joined by my colleagues, Adam McGowan, the Director of Industry Initiatives, and Emerald Dunn-Frost, our Senior Project Officer. I'm going to share my screen so that we can follow along a presentation together today. And I'm going to start with an acknowledgement. So acknowledging the very many traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and honouring their elders, both past and present. We here at Creative Australia respect their deep and enduring connection to lands, to waterways and surrounding clan groups since time immemorial, and we cherish the richness of First Nations peoples' artistic and cultural expressions. And we're really privileged to gather on this country to share knowledge, culture and art now and with future generations. And I particularly acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, which is the peoples of the land that I'm on here in the Creative Australia offices in Sydney. The name for this place is Pirama. It's a really beautiful spot where the land and the sky and the sea meet, and I'm very grateful to be able to work here. So just a few notes about accessibility in our session today. So you'll see that we have two Auslan interpreters joining us. They will alternate. So at the moment we have Bella on screen and later we'll be joined by Josh. We also have closed captions available for this webinar, so you can turn those on using the CC button in the bottom of your Zoom screen in your Zoom menu. You can also ask questions at any time using the question and answer function, also at the bottom of your screen in the Zoom menu. My colleague Emerald will be answering those questions in the Q&A section as we go, but I will also answer many of those questions verbally at the end of the session, just for access reasons, so that everybody can access that content. Okay, so just a little overview of our agenda today. We're going to start with just a brief introduction to the industry development team and the work that we do here at Creative Australia, and the governance program and the work that we've been doing over the past few years to support arts and culture organisations, artists and arts workers with governance. Then I'll talk a bit about our company director capability funds. So the first one, the fund for individuals, and then also the fund for organisations. And then I'll speak a little bit about how you can apply for these funds, how they'll be assessed, and chat through some frequently asked questions. And let us know how you can contact us if you would like support with your application. Okay, and passing over now to my colleague, Adam McGowan, the Director of Industry Initiatives.
Thanks so much, Adelaide. And hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this information session this afternoon to talk you through these two new opportunities. As Adelaide mentioned, I'm the Director of Industry Development, and our team supports artists, arts workers and arts organisations to develop their skills, knowledge and mindsets to enable them to thrive and achieve their ambitions. And we do that through a range of modalities. Some of you joining us today will be familiar perhaps with some of the programs. Some of you may have participated in other programs, but it runs the gamut from intensive professional development programs, which might run over a 12-month period, to very short contained workshops that we might deliver in a specific skills area. We run a whole range of different mentoring and coaching programs, everything from business innovation to digital transformation within organisations. And we also, like we're doing with this opportunity, provide investment that's targeted towards areas of particular skill and capability building. And so to talk now a little bit about our work in governance, some of you may be familiar with some of the previous opportunities or ways that you've been able to engage around arts governance. We've had a strategic priority in this area for the last 3 years. And prior to the opportunities that are now open for applications, last year we launched a Governance Hub. And that's a free resource available on the Creative Australia website. And it provides a whole range of guides and templates to scaffold and support policy development at a governance level. We have a whole range of really phenomenal panel conversations that were curated by Diversity Arts Australia, really thinking about and unpacking what the role of a company director is and how that is actually embodied in practice within the arts and cultural sector. And there are also some really phenomenal case studies on that Governance Hub, which seek to profile and highlight really great work that's happening out in the sector. Around things like succession planning, around board diversification, and also thinking about how governance can be fit for purpose. Obviously, when we're talking about governance, that has considerations around certain maybe legal or regulatory or reporting requirements. But governance is a whole lot more than that. And how that culture of governance is set in an organization is a very important conversation to have. In addition to these opportunities that are open now, we also worked over 3 years with the Australian Institute of Company Directors, and that's one of the providers that you might seek to work with in your own training and development in this area through the new fund. But we supported roughly 170 artists and arts and cultural workers to participate in one of those AICD programs. So this is really a continuation of that opportunity to undertake some more formalized training to build skill and capability around a company director role. I might leave it there, except to just contextualize, which I maybe didn't say at the start. In addition to this priority focus on governance, you may have also encountered some of our other work around leadership development, and then more recently, and stewarded in connection with the digital culture program, a whole range of development opportunities supporting digital transformation and adaptation. So thanks again for joining us, and I'll hand back to Adelaide now to talk more around the opportunities that are open for application. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Adam. Thanks for joining us and sharing a bit more about the amazing work that happens here at Creative Australia and in our team supporting artists, arts workers and arts organisations. Okay. So I'm going to start to talk through the 2 opportunities that we are here to share some information with you about today. The Company Director Capability Funds for individuals and for organisations. I'm going to start off with a bit of general information about eligibility. So this means eligibility is about whether or not you can apply for this grant. And there's some general principles that apply to both the Company Director Capability Fund for individuals and the fund for organisations. So the first thing to know is that you can't apply, unfortunately, if you have an overdue grant report or if you owe money to Creative Australia. So if you think that you might be in one of those categories, please make sure that you contact Creative Australia. You can speak to our artist services team and they'll be able to let you know if you do have an overdue grant report or if there's any money owing and how you can resolve those issues. It's also important to know you can only submit one application to either of the individuals fund or the organisations fund. And we will ask you to also confirm that you don't have other funding from Creative Australia for the same expenses that you're seeking support for through these funds. So those are just 2 general eligibility notes. The other thing that I want to start off by as well is just explaining some terminology. So there are a couple of different terms that people use to describe the people that govern an organization or the roles that people have when they govern an organization. Company director is one, board member is another, and then occasionally you will also see that people refer to themselves as committee members. It's important to know that this fund is supporting the groups and the members of that group with the legal responsibility to govern the organisation. They might be called very different things. And obviously for this opportunity, we have referred to them as company directors. But board members and committee members are also the focus of these funds. Okay, so I'm going to have a bit of a chat to you now about the Company Director Capability Fund for individuals. If you're joining this webinar and you want to hear about the fund for organisations, please hold on. I'll get to that in a moment. And actually, I encourage you to think about whether or not you know any artists or arts workers who you think might be good candidates for the fund for individuals and how you might recommend to them that they apply for this fund. So the important thing here is that this fund aligns with our 2024 and to 2028 strategy and priority to offer opportunities to increase diversity in the creative workforce and in leadership. So we know that our art sector and the artists and arts workers in the sector are incredibly diverse, but we're wanting to improve the opportunities that those artists and arts workers have access to and the roles that they're able to take up as a result of the skills and experience and perspectives that they offer. Research that Creative Australia has commissioned has shown that diverse artists and arts workers are underrepresented in board roles in Australian arts and cultural organisations currently. And so this fund is directed specifically at addressing that. If you are an individual, and I'll get to in a moment the very specific groups that we are supporting through this fund, but if you are an individual from a diverse background, we really encourage you to value your experience, your perspectives, and the contribution that you would be able to make to the governance of arts and cultural organisations through a company director role, a board member role. This fund is designed to really support you to develop your skills and your knowledge and your mindset so that you're ready to take up a board role, because we know that you're already coming with a lot of experience, a lot of ideas, a lot of aspirations for arts and culture, and being involved as a board member or a company director in a arts and cultural organisation is a really great way to contribute that skill, your knowledge, your experiences to the thriving and flourishing of arts and culture. The other opportunity that you have through applying for this fund is to really identify training that will meet your own very specific professional development needs and your learning preferences. So we'll talk through in a moment a little more about what you can apply for, but our intention with this fund is that you have the opportunity to choose things that will work for you given where you are, how you like to learn, and what you're interested in learning, and where you feel like you need to develop your skills or your knowledge so that you're in a great position to be a company director. Okay, so we're going to get into talking about some of the specifics of the individual's opportunity. So the most important thing to note about the individual's opportunity, and related to what I mentioned earlier about the fact that there is an underrepresentation of diverse people in board roles in arts and culture in Australia, is that in order to apply for this fund, you must identify as Australian First Nations, or deaf or disabled, or culturally and linguistically diverse, or you must be under 25 years old, or 25 years old and under, sorry, to be specific, or living in a regional and remote area. So these are all ORs. You don't have to be all of these identity categories, but we do require that you identify with one of these categories. And you may, of course, be at the intersection of a number of these categories. Of course, you're welcome to apply. We want to also acknowledge that identity is complex and the language that we use to describe identity is very personal, and people have quite different views on how they use language to refer to their identity. So we encourage you, if you're not quite sure if you fit into one of these categories, to please contact us. And I'll give you the contact details at the end of this webinar. But please contact us so we can have a chat with you about that. So in addition to identifying in one of these categories, you must also be an individual. So this fund is only available to individual people, not to groups. And you must be a practicing artist or arts worker. And really that just means that you have an ongoing and demonstrated commitment to an arts practice or practicing as an arts worker or a creative worker. Again, if you're not sure if you fit into one of those categories, please contact us and we can have a chat with you about it. And finally, you need to be an Australian citizen or Australian permanent resident. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next slide and just explain a few things that would prevent you from applying for the Individuals Fund. So for this fund, you cannot apply if you are currently a board member of an organisation. And that's because we have a different opportunity, the Organisations Fund, which I'll talk about in a moment, that is relevant to board members of organisations. The next point here is that you cannot apply if you have been on a board in the past. And the reason for this is that we're really interested through this fund in supporting people who have yet to have the opportunity to engage in a board or a company director role. That's the priority of this fund. So if you have been on a board in the past, unfortunately, you cannot apply for this fund. We do have other opportunities available through Creative Australia that you may be able to apply for. So again, if you're not sure or you want to chat with us about it, please get in touch. Finally, we have in the past offered training that was called the Governance Training for Individuals or Organisations, the 1.5-day or the 3-day courses with the Australian Institute for Company Directors. We offered these courses in 22 and 23-24. If you participated in these trainings, you are not eligible to apply for this fund. If you're not sure, can't remember, there's a lot of opportunities, you've applied for a lot of things, please get in touch and we'll be able to let you know for sure. Okay, so that's eligibility for the individual's opportunity. Now we're going to get into what is this opportunity and what can you even apply for? So this opportunity is a grant and you can apply for $3,000 and it's a flat rate. So you don't apply for $1,000, $2,000 or $552, you apply for $3,000. And you apply for training in governance. And it must be with one of the 4 preferred training providers that offer training to individuals. And I will in a moment go through who those training providers are. You can also see them listed on the opportunity pages for both of these opportunities on our website. Okay, so as I said, the training must be for training in governance, so issues and topics that are relevant to governance. So that could be the role and responsibilities of a board member. It could be how you read the financial statements of an organisation so that you can fulfil your responsibilities to be able to review and approve the financial management of the organisation. It could be risk management, strategic planning, anything that's related to the work and the responsibilities of a board member or company director. And this training needs to take place between the 1st of July 2025 and the 30th of June 2026. So the financial year that starts on the 1st of July. This training can be online or in person. The preferred training providers offer courses in a variety of formats and lengths and focus topics. So there's lots of diversity to choose from there. And you can choose more than one course from more than one provider. So you don't need to go only to one specific provider. If the $3,000 grant allows you to spend money on a number of different courses, then we really welcome you to do that. I'm just going to take a step back here and explain that really what we're interested here is for you to use that $3,000 to choose courses and training opportunities from the training providers that will help you to develop the governance skills and knowledge that you need to step into a board role. So it's helpful if you can identify what it is that you think you might need in terms of those skills, and then identify the opportunity that you think will best suit you and your learning preferences. If you're not sure, you can give us a ring and we can have a chat with you about it, or you can contact us in any way that works for you. We also recommend that you contact the training providers, and I'll go through those are in a minute, but they'll be able to help you as well to identify the types of courses that you might have access to. Okay, so I've mentioned that you can spend your $3,000 on the cost of training courses with one or more of the 4 preferred training providers. We also know that you can have other costs associated with attending training. So you can use your grant to cover some costs associated with ground transport to and from the course. So we specifically mean ground transport here. The grant is not intended to support you to fly to and from other cities because it's a relatively small amount of money, and flights and travel and accommodation can be quite expensive, and we want you to spend the majority of this money on the training. So ground transport such as trains, buses, or parking, that's definitely things that you can spend that on. We also acknowledge that we all have different needs that support us to attend and participate actively in training and development. So you can spend some of this $3,000 grant on costs associated with access, anything to do with being a carer, or childcare. So access costs that you might have could include Auslan interpretation, arranging for captions in an online course, having a note taker, having someone support you while you do the course, amongst other things. And finally, you can spend some of this grant on fees for your time to attend the course. So we acknowledge that independent artists and arts workers often are not able to pay themselves to take up these opportunities, and you need to forego other work. So we have included here that you can spend some of your grant on supporting yourself to attend the course. Okay. So that was the individual's opportunity, and I'm now going to move on to speaking about the specifics of the Company Director Capability Fund for organisations. For the individuals who are listening, please just hold on. I'll get back to chatting about some of the specifics of the opportunity for you a little bit later in the presentation. And those who are here because you're working in an organisation and would like to hear about the Fund for Organisations, we'll get cracking on that now. So this particular fund for organisations is really designed to support company directors and board members of organisations, along with key staff members. And we're, again, to develop the skills, the knowledge, and the mindsets that you and your board need to support best practice governance. This training very particularly supports in-house customised training that suits your unique context, but it also allows you the opportunity to access public training courses on key issues in governance if that's relevant for your board members and key staff members. So one of the reasons that we've offered the fund for organisations in this way is that we acknowledge that boards and organisations often have very specific strategic goals that they're trying to pursue, and that sometimes you need to develop the skills, knowledge, and mindsets of your board and key staff members so that the governance of your organisation can really support your strategic goals. And we also acknowledge that organisations often have very unique contexts, and you have very specific needs. And so this opportunity supports you to access training, in-house training, customised to your organisation, if that's what suits you. And so really, this opportunity is about identifying and pursuing robust, fit-for-purpose governance that supports your organisation's strategic goals. Okay, so now I'm going to speak a little bit about the eligibility for the organisations fund. So you do need to apply as an organisation. So individual board members cannot apply, staff members of organisations cannot apply unless you're separately and independently eligible for the individuals fund. So you must apply as an organisation, and unfortunately you cannot apply as a group. So the other things that prevent you from applying are that you cannot apply if you are a National Performing Arts Partnership Framework organisation, you receive multi-year investment from Creative Australia, you are a visual arts, craft or design framework organisation, or a delivery partner organisation, and very specifically, any of those organisations in receipt of more than $800,000 in annual funding. So if you are one of those organisations and you receive less than $800,000, you are welcome to apply. If you receive more than $800,000, unfortunately, you're not able to apply for this fund. Okay. The other thing that will prevent you from applying for this organisations fund is if your organisation board or staff members participated in previous rounds of the governance training for organisations opportunities with the Australian Institute of Company Directors. If you're not sure if that is you, and particularly in the case that you've had some staff turnover or maybe some turnover in your board members and you're really not sure because people have moved on, please contact us and we can advise you. Okay, moving on. So for organisations, what you can apply for is a $6,000 flat rate. So a $6,000 grant. Again, not $500, not $500, not $5,000, $6,000 flat rate. You must apply for governance training with one of 5 preferred training providers. Again, I'll get to who those preferred training providers are in a moment. You can apply for training that is in-house, so where the training provider speaks with you to discover what it is your specific needs are and delivers a training course directly to your company directors, your board members of your organisation, along with key staff. Or you can apply to send your board and staff members or your company directors and your staff members to places in public courses that are offered by the training providers. So, the training provider will have a list of courses that are publicly available. You can use this fund to send your board and staff members to those public courses. You must make sure that the training that you propose to spend money on as part of this fund is for at least 2 board members and 1 staff member. And the reason for this is that it can be challenging when only one person does the training and then the burden of communicating that training and the concepts in that training to the rest of the company directors and the rest of the board and indeed to staff members can be quite great. And also there's a really great opportunity for board and staff members to build shared understanding about really important principles in governance by doing the training together. It also means that you can have conversations as a board as you go through the training and benefit from the expertise of your training provider as you're really trying to navigate and unpack some of the really big and complex issues that company directors and boards and staff are facing. Okay. So some examples of what you might want to spend some examples of the training that you might like to access include things like the risks to your organisation and the governance risks associated with AI or with other cyber risks. It might be about risk management. So that as an organisation, you're wanting to take on some really innovative projects, but there are some specific risks associated with that. And you'd like to develop the board's capability to deal with those risks. So those are just a couple of examples. Okay, so again, with this fund, you can, as an organisation, apply to do more than one activity with more than one provider. So if it happens that there are a couple of different kind of courses or short courses that you'd like your board and staff members to access, and you can choose more than one activity and with more than one of the preferred training providers. Again, these courses can be online or in person, acknowledging that board members often don't always live in the same place as the organisation that they work with. And it can be in a variety of formats and lengths and topic areas. And again, similar to the individual's opportunity, the training must take place in the next financial year, so commencing no earlier than the 1st of July 2025 and must finish by the 30th of June 2026. Okay, I'm going to take a moment here for a sip of water. So just continuing for organisations around what you can apply for. As I've said, you can apply for the cost of training courses or courses for your board and staff members. You can also include the costs of ground transport to and from training for your board members. And that's acknowledging that many board members are unpaid. And so there's sometimes a cost associated with attending different board meetings and different activities of the board. And the other costs associated are access, carer, and childcare costs for your board members that are associated with them attending the training. So for organisations, there's one particular note that I need to make about the co-contribution that may be applicable to you and your organisation. So if you receive more than $500,000 in annual funding from Creative Australia, you must contribute at least $2,000 to the total cost of activities that you are proposing. So that means that your total planned expenditure must be at least $8,000. So the $6,000 grant that you have plus your $2,000 minimum $2,000 contribution. You cannot use in-kind, i.e. non-financial contributions to make up this amount. And you do not need to provide evidence of this co-contribution upfront, but you will be required to demonstrate that you made the contribution in your grant report once you have spent the money. Again, if you're not sure about that and how that might work, please get in touch with us. The only other notes that I just want to make here is that we will ask you to provide the names of the confirmed board and staff members that you will be including in the training. And you will need to provide us with a list of proposed activities. So for both opportunities, actually, you don't need to have the activities completely confirmed, but we do want you to tell us which activities you think you would like to do. Okay, so we're going to keep on moving here, and I'm going to now speak about the preferred providers. So this is a list of the providers that we have chosen as our preferred providers for these two funds, for the Individuals Fund and the Organisations Fund. And you must choose training from one of these providers. They all provide relevant quality courses online, in person, across a range of different formats, including single hour-long webinars through to multi-day courses with content that is introductory through to specific and very advanced. They offer a variety of delivery styles. So some of the courses are self-paced, where you just go at your own speed. Some of them are hybrid courses. So there's some self-paced content, and then there's some live sort of learning with a group. And then others of them are fully live. So they happen with, your company directors and your staff in the room, or in a group of other members of the public who are participating in the course. Each of these providers offers in-house training to organisations. So the organisations you can choose from this list of 5. Just to be clear, for individuals, so if you are applying for the Individuals Fund, one of these providers does not provide courses to individuals, and that is Justice Connect's not-for-profit law. Otherwise, this list of training providers, so starting at the top, the Australian Institute for Company Directors, they offer a range of courses. They do have a course specific to not-for-profit governance and a range of other courses on specific topics. The Governance Institute of Australia, again, offers a range of in-person and online opportunities. They have short courses and micro-credentials that can be bundled up so that you can do a number of different courses with them that create a kind of little bundle. Then the Institute for Community Directors Australia. Again, this organisation is not for profit focused, working particularly with community organisations and directors of community organisations. And they offer a range of online and self-paced courses as well as live training courses. As I said before, Justice Connect's not-for-profit law offer training very particularly to organisations. They do not offer opportunities to individuals, but they also have really great resources on their website, as do most of these providers. And then finally, Small Giants Academy. So they have a really great governing for purpose course, as well as in-house training opportunities for organisations. Please really recommend that you review the offerings that each of these providers have. And so we recommend that you contact them to discuss your needs and the things that you're interested in learning, how you might even figure out what you need to know, and then which course or training opportunity will match best your needs. And also you'll be able to talk with them about your learning preferences. So you might have the time and capacity for a self-paced course as a priority, or you might want to really value learning in person with a group of people. So they'll be able to advise you on the different courses that will meet your different needs. And as I've said a few times now, you can propose to do more than one course with more than one provider. So as long as it's with one of these 5 providers, if you're an organisation, or 4 providers that for the individuals, you can propose more than one. Okay, so I'm going to chat now through the application process. So applications to both the Company Directors Capability Fund for individuals and also the fund for organisations apply using the same process. So you apply using Creative Australia's application management system. This is also known as Flux to many. You do need to create an account in Flux by Thursday, the 8th of May, if you do not already have an account. So if you already have an account as an individual, or you already have one as an organisation, you don't need to create a new one. But if you have never applied for a grant with Creative Australia before, and very particularly if you have never applied either as an individual or an organisation, you do need to create a profile. And it takes a few days for that profile to be set up. So please make sure you are have created an account in the system by Thursday, the 8th of May. The way that you do this is you go to the Creative Australia website and you search for Capability Fund, navigate to the relevant page, so the Capability Fund for individuals or the fund for organisations, and you click on Apply Now, and it will take you to Flux, the application management system. So if you need assistance, so once you've read through all of the information on our website, you've listened to this webinar, you've called your training providers, and you've had to think about what you would like to do, you jump into the application management system and you can start filling out the form. If you need assistance with your application, you can call or email us at any time before the closing date for this opportunity, which is Tuesday, the 13th of May. So we recommend that if at all possible, you call us as soon as you can and with as much time before Tuesday, the 13th of May as you can, so that we have enough time to assist you. The closer we get to Tuesday, the 13th of May, the longer it will take us to get back to you. Okay. The other thing to know is that you can also submit your application in languages other than English, including in Auslan. Please contact us if this is what you would like to do, just so we can make sure that we're ready to receive and process those applications. And if you want to submit your application in another format, for example, a video or an audio recording, because that is more accessible to you, again, please contact us and let us know, and we will talk you through the best process to use. Okay, so just continuing on with some more notes about applications. So as I've said, you will jump into the application management system and choose Apply for a Grant. And you'll choose from the list of opportunities either the Company Director Capability Fund for individuals or the Company Director Capability Fund for organisations. The application form requires you to fill in some of your details, select from a few options, respond to 3 short answer questions, and these questions are 1,000 characters each, so that is not a lot, not a lot of words. You'll need to tell us what activities you want to do, and then submit some support material, and I'll go through that in a little bit more detail in a moment. The questions that you will need to answer are actually available on the website. So we've given you those questions in the opportunity guidelines, which you can find on the website. So if you navigate to our website, to the Capability Fund pages, find the drop down that says applications, and you'll be able to read a bit more about the questions that we'll ask you. Essentially, these questions are designed so that we can learn a bit more about you, why you're interested in this opportunity, what you want to do, and why that's going to support you to reach your goals. Okay, so, sorry, I've gone too far. I've gone all the way back. Sorry, excuse me while I just navigate to this next page. There we go. So, support material. So, for individuals, we'd like to see a 2-page CV that shows your relevant artistic and professional experience. So here we're not interested in necessarily how much or who with. We want to know a bit about who you are, what your practice is, things that you've done that you're proud of, opportunities that you've had, such as the residencies you've been on, exhibitions you've been in, shows you've been in. So, and you can also include your professional experience if you're an arts worker or indeed an artist. We know that many of you do both, and also do work outside of arts and culture that may be relevant to the work that you would like to do as a company director or a board member. So, and it's just a 2-page CV, please no longer than that. We will not be able to read anything longer than 2 pages. For organisations, you just need to provide a 2-page summary of participating board and staff member biographies. Again, please try and make these biographies relevant to the work and of your organisation and how the board and staff members contribute to that work. And again, please make sure it is 2 pages. Please don't submit any other support material. It's not required, so you really don't give yourself extra work, and we won't consider it or read it. So please don't submit any annual reports or strategic plans for your organisation. We'd like you to address the key parts of those documents in your application responses instead of submitting support material. Okay, so next, just going to talk through assessment and how we will assess these the applications that you make to the individuals fund and the organisations fund. So applications are assessed based on how well they address the assessment criteria. So the 2 assessment criteria for this opportunity are quality and impact. And I'm going to speak about each of those assessment criteria for each of the funds in a moment, but they are the same criteria for both funds. Your application will be assessed by independent industry advisors from diverse professional, artistic, and lived experience. So the industry advisor's role is to advise Creative Australia on which applications we should prioritise. So their expertise, their experience, their perspectives on how well your application has met the assessment criteria. That's what they will advise us on. And then Creative Australia staff make the final decision in line with the aim of each fund. So what we're trying to achieve with each of the funds. Okay. Moving on, so there's a lot of information on this slide and I'm going to talk it through, but I recommend also that you take a screenshot or review the captions for this one. So what I've got on this slide is the criteria. So the 2 criteria are quality and impact. And then I've explained what each of those criteria is and then provided you with some suggestions on the right for how your application could meet those, how you could write your application so that you have the best chance of meeting those criteria. So for individuals, we're really interested in the quality of the professional development activities that are proposed in your application. And so to speak to that quality, we'd love for you to tell us about you and your arts practice and the quality of your practice and your experiences and perspectives and how committed you are to arts and cultural practice and arts and culture generally. We want to hear about your goals and ambitions. And then very particularly, we want to hear how the activity that you are proposing to do with your $3,000 grant will help you achieve your goals. Okay, and then the second criteria is impact. So we're really interested in what you expect will be the impact or the outcome of the proposed development activities on your career development and your active engagement in arts and culture. So we're interested for you to tell us how your selected activity will help you to achieve your career goals. So the things that you're interested in doing as a company director or a board member of an organization. We're really interested to understand why it's important that you do your proposed activities. Why is it important that you have the opportunity to develop the skills and knowledge that will help you to be a company director? And why do you need to do that now? Why does it feel important for this to be the right time? We're also really interested in how these activities will help you actively contribute to an equitable, accessible, and inclusive sector. This opportunity is really about supporting diverse individuals to take on company director roles, and we're really interested in the role that you might play in supporting a sector that is equitable, accessible, and inclusive. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the assessment criteria for the Organisations Fund. The broad criteria are the same. So the first one is quality. And here we're interested in the quality of the organisational and governance development proposed in your application. So we're really interested in what you do as an organisation, who you do it with, and why it's important. We want to know about your goals and ambitions as an organisation. So that's really wanting to understand your strategic plan, your strategic focus as an organisation. And we want to know what you know about your governance capability needs. So if you're thinking, I've got this strategic goal as an organisation, or we have this strategic goal as an organisation, and we want to reach that, what are the things that we need to do at a governance level to be able to be prepared as company directors, as board members, and as key staff members to achieve that goal? So that an example I gave earlier was perhaps your organization is wanting to step into an innovation space. Maybe you're interested in some entrepreneurial approaches, and you need to improve the financial management of your organization, and you need to improve your financial governance, as well as understand what is the best way that you can manage the risks that might be associated with that innovation. And so you'd be thinking then that as an organization, we need to prepare our board and our company directors and our board to with the skills and the knowledge that they need to steward our organization through that process. So in terms of that quality criteria, we're really interested in the alignment between your needs as an organization, your interests, your proposed activities, and your goals, what you are trying to achieve. With the impact criteria, so that's the second criteria there, we are interested in understanding what you expect will be the impacts and the outcomes of your proposed activities on your board's development and your engagement in arts and culture. So please tell us how your proposed activities will actually support your staff and board capability. So you could talk here about the very specific learning preferences and needs that your staff and board or company directors have, and how you think the proposed activities that you're going to do will actually help you to support your goals and your strategic goals as an organisation. We're also generally interested in how the activities will enable your board to actively contribute to an equitable, inclusive, and accessible sector. So the ways in which your strategic goals link to those outcomes, and the way that the training that you'll do will support you to do that. Okay. Righty, so I'm going to move on now to just a couple of top tips, and we're nearly at the end of the presentation, and there'll be a chance for some more questions. So first step is reflect on what skills and knowledge you think you might need to develop to achieve your goals. So this fund is about supporting you to access training that will enable you as an individual to step onto a board as a company director, or as an organisation to prepare your board and staff to really achieve your strategic goals as an organisation. So you really, in order to think about applying for this grant, we really encourage you to reflect on what are the skills and knowledge that you need, and how might you actually develop those so that you can get to where you want to be. we can help you to start thinking about this. But we also recommend that you speak to people that you know and trust. So other artists that you work with, arts workers, organizations that you work with, people who you know who have been in boards in the past. All of these people will be able to give you, I think, and help you to reflect on what it is that you want to develop and where you want to go. When you're writing your application, please try to tell us how you think your chosen activity matches your needs. So what it is that you're trying to achieve and how. We also recommend that you take advantage of the expertise that the preferred providers have in matching your learning needs to the courses that they have available. So please talk to them about what your needs are and the courses that they recommend. And remember, you can contact more than one provider. They all have very different offerings and approaches that will suit different people and different organizations in different ways. Finally, please get in touch. Myself and my colleague Emerald are always really happy to chat. It's one of our favorite parts of the job is talking to people about their aspirations and their goals and helping them to match those to opportunities that are available. So please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. At the very end, I'll let you know a couple of ways that you can get in touch with us. And just very quickly, a couple of frequently asked questions that are actually also answered on the website, but that I just wanted to mention here because they are really common. And the first one is, do you need to submit a budget when you apply for either of these funds? The answer is no. We don't need you to submit a budget. For the individuals fund, you apply for a flat rate of $3,000, and for the organizations fund, you apply for a flat rate of $6,000. That is it. And you do not need to give us an itemized budget. We do need you to tell us what you're going to spend the money on. So which courses you want to do, which activities you want to do. And so it's a good idea that you have a sense that those are things that you can afford within the amount that we are paying you, but it is your responsibility to make sure that you have sufficient budget in your grant to support the costs that you want to meet. And it's important to know that we will ask you to complete a grant report once you've spent the money, and we'll ask you in that grant report to explain what you spend the money on. So please do keep clear records of what you spend the grant on. And when will you know if your application has been successful? So we aim to advise you about the outcome of your application within 12 weeks of the closing date. We will, in this case, aim to make sure that you that you are notified of the outcome of your application before the 30th of June. Okay. So your questions, I think that I've been sitting across from my wonderful colleague Emerald, and she's been answering many of your questions. I'm going to read some of them out, just so that for those who are watching this webinar as a recording. We've got some questions here about the different ways that disability is defined and whether or not mental illness or neurodivergence are included in that definition. As I said earlier in the presentation, we acknowledge that identity is really complex. And so we do encourage you to reach out to us to have a conversation so that we can understand a little bit more about your situation and how you like to talk about your identity and what that means for you, and whether or not you'll be eligible for this fund. Okay. Alrighty. And so there is a couple of questions about whether or not applying for this fund will impact your successfulness with other funds or your capacity to be successful in other funds or other opportunities with Creative Australia. So unless you are very specifically ineligible for other opportunities, applying for this opportunity does not affect your likelihood of success with those other opportunities. Okay. And another question, a really great question here. So for the organisations fund, do 2 board members and the 1 staff member, the minimum number of people required to take to be supported by the funding, do they all have to take the same course? And The answer is no, they don't have to. We do encourage that you do the training together because there's a lot of really significant benefits from doing the training together. But if different members of the board want to build capacity in different areas and you can articulate how that would very specifically support your organization to meet your strategic goals, then it is acceptable for you to do other, multiple different courses. Okay. Alrighty, and there's a couple of other open questions here. So one asking when you have to start or finish the courses by. So the course can start no earlier than the 1st of July 2025. So that's the 1st of July this year. And the course must be complete by the 30th of June 2026. So from which is next year. So there's 12 months to spend the grant associated with these funds. Okay, there's a great question here. Typically, what point in an organization's journey would you suggest that they apply for this fund? So whether or not you have to have been around as an organization for a long time, or whether or not it's really early in your time operating as an organization. As long as you can really clearly demonstrate that as an organization, you have some really ambitious, interesting, unique goals, strategic goals that you're trying to achieve, and that in order to achieve those, one of the key mechanisms is going to be supporting your company directors and your board to develop a very particular set of skills and experience, then you are very likely to be able, you can apply for this grant, of course, and that's going to be something that we'll really be looking at in the assessment process. So we want to see that you have some specific strategic goals and that they will be really well supported by developing the skills and experience of your company directors and your board members. So if that's quite early on, but you're feeling really confident that governance skills are what you really need for your board so that you can meet your strategic goals, then please do apply for this opportunity. Again, I would also really encourage you to just get in touch with us to have a chat about that. We'll be able to provide some more specific guidance to individual organizations and individuals. Okay. And then we've got another question down here. So someone who was an artistic director of an organization reported to the board was not technically a board member. Would they still be eligible to apply as an individual? The answer is yes. If you were not a board member or a company director, so if that was not, you were not actually sitting on that board as a company director, then you have not been on a board and therefore you would be eligible to apply for the individuals fund as long as you meet all the other criteria. I think that is all of the questions that I'm able to answer for this session. So I'm just going to now jump to what happens if you need help. So if you would like to chat to myself or my lovely colleague Emerald, you can make a booking with us for a 15-minute chat. This can happen via phone, online, via Zoom or Teams. So to access this bookings, you can go to our website, creative.gov.au, search for Capability Fund to find the relevant opportunity page. Scroll down the page a little bit and you will find a link to our online booking portal where you can book a 15-minute conversation where we can have a chat with you about any aspect of the fund. We can't help you to write your application with specifics of that, but we can give you lots of guidance about different aspects of the guidelines and how you might go through the application process, as well as connect you with other organisations that can assist you if need be. You can also email us, leadershipprogram@creative.gov.au, or you can call us toll free on 1800 226 912. Alrighty, I'm going to stop sharing the presentation, come back here and say thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you to our Auslan interpreters, Josh and Bella, and thank you to our captioning service. Thank you as always to Emerald for managing the Q&A. And please encourage you all to take a look at the the company director capability funds for individuals and organizations, and encourage you to apply. That's it for today, folks. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye.